The views and opinions expressed on any program are those of the producers and/or the persons appearing on the program and do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of FRC Media, Bristol Community College, or the City of Fall River.
Happy Wednesday. Thank you for joining us this day on FRC Media. I'm Keith Tebow, and on Wednesdays, we speak with the mayor of the City of Fall River, Mayor Paul Coogan. Mayor, how are you on this day?
Doing good, Keith. How about you?
Good. Before we get started, a couple of issues we're going to touch upon this week. I want to ask you about the heat. I know that there's been some cooling centers that have been open. Can you give any updates briefly in terms of whether people have taken advantage of those and your office has heard any issues?
I think it's actually been pretty quiet. I mean, obviously our senior centers have been open, and as you said, we do have something, but we haven't. I think it's probably 30, 40 miles inland where they're getting the intense heat. So we've been fortunate in that regard that we are on the water. So we're not getting a lot of calls or complaints or anything like that. Traditionally, we get a lot of, the air conditioning's down in this building or there's a problem, but no, we've been lucky.
And I guess we're getting some relief, I believe, tomorrow. So that'll help as well, as I believe rain's coming in, I think, late tonight and tomorrow as we record this. All right, I actually want to get into, as we record this on a Wednesday last night, the Fall River City Council voted not to accept the proposal from your administration to place an item on the November ballot, which would seek a debt exclusion to help the city pay for its share of the construction of the new Diamond Regional Vocational Technical High School. Let me just ask you first, just your reaction, and then we'll talk about maybe what next steps could be.
Well, it's the administration putting the question forward, but it's really up to the voters. That's what we wanted to stress. It's not I have one vote, like everybody in the city has one vote on whether we want to put that on the debt exclusion for Diamond. It was an option going down the road. I tried to explain that. The way things work in city government is finances change. It's constantly in a state of flux. No one could have predicted what COVID did. No one could have predicted that the trash bags would go away and there would be no revenue there. Things change all the time. And I have no idea what's going on at Beacon Hill in regard to vocational funding or how they're going to let that play out over the next few years. This was simply a backup option. And I hearken back to the Durfee vote where you look at what we did there. The Durfee vote, the vote is approved. Still, the first year when Mary Sahadi was here, she was able to fold that the Durfee debt into the budget, zero to the taxpayers on Durfee. The next 2 years, because we did have that ARPA money, we were able to reduce the tax on Durfee to the taxpayers by a half. So you can't even though you say it's going to be 30 years at a set amount, things change all the time, and that would be our goal. If something, if some revenues increased substantially enough to help us offset that, that's what we would do. This vote last night was just the opportunity to give the voters a say. And I obviously, when the council voted for Diamond, I guess it was back in 22, they chose to go with the money coming directly from the budget. That's their call. It was their call last night. We respect it, and we go forward.
Now, it doesn't preclude either your administration or even a future administration between now and when, the Diamond bill comes in and, over a 30-year period, that a debt exclusion vote may come up again, right? I mean, that's the prerogative.
That's obviously, yep, that's the prerogative of the administration and the council to decide which way they want to go. I mean, that was always the case. And as I said, to me, this was like an insurance policy. That we knew that the funding would always be available to take care of Diamond if needed. If other things happen, then we'll go with other things. But right now, we'll do whatever we can to make sure Diamond's built and we go forward.
Obviously, the next question is if, the city were to continue to pay this bill, and it could be upwards of over $7 million, during the big heart of this payback over the 30 years. where would the money come from? And I know that in some ways that's really premature, as you mentioned, right? Things change over the course of years. You can't say how you're going to pay maybe a bill 10 years from now that could be
Where you
$7 million,
work,
right?
Keith, where you work, it's a perfect example. You had kids, or I take that back. You had an over 25 population scrambling for finding ways to pay for college. Now it's
Yeah.
free.
Mm-hmm.
Things change, and what the plan would be going forward, you couldn't lay that out now on a bet. You don't know what reimbursements are coming from the state, what personnel costs are going to be down the road, how many people are going to be needed, what's going to happen with health insurance, what's going to happen with trash, what's going to happen with pensions. You just don't know all those things. You do your best to factor in as we do every year. The council asks us for a $5 capital, I'm sorry, $5, 5-year capital projection, and we have to submit that to them. So you're always looking for long-term planning, and that's the way it is. You can't get a mortgage for 1 year or 2 year because you have the money. You have to be able to show a steady net income that's going to be able to fund the mortgage. And that's what this was. Again, the council decided that the way to go was to work within the budget. And so obviously that's what our plan will be. We'll go forward with that. And I think, because I've been in this job, it's my 5th year, I do see things change all the time. And we'll work with our local delegation. We'll work with our federal delegation. We'll do whatever we can to find ways to try to bring additional money to Diamond and the city and go from there.
Yep. All right. The other item this week is over the last couple of meetings of the Fall River School Committee, members of the Fall River Educators Association have taken advantage of citizens' input time to give their input concerning their next contract negotiation. Their current contract expired, and they're currently negotiating with the city on a new contract. Obviously, you've got two sides. Both sides have been very transparent in terms of what their offers have been, and what they currently are on the table. What's your assessment of what's happening and how to move forward?
I think the only way you move forward is by talking. I think, as I said initially, when the teachers union asked for 12, 12, and 12, I thought that was ridiculous. We would never get there. When we said 2, 2, and 2, I thought that was ridiculous. We would never get there. So what I looked at was some kind of a middle ground. Now, if you notice the way it seems like the debate is now going to a pay correction, as someone pointed out the other night, all of those contracts for the numbers that the teachers have now were signed by the teachers union, and all of them were signed by the city. So those were agreements we had with them, which has put us at this base. Do I, as someone that worked in education under those contracts for a long time, know that Fall River people are historically paid less than a lot of our neighboring communities? Absolutely. Would I wish we could click our fingers and give them every penny they want? That might be a way to go. But at the same time, I know that our offer, we talked about it again the other night, is substantial, is fair, and incorporates some of the other things they're looking for. But they come to the meeting the other night. For example, I'm looking at it. It was the 15th. The union scheduled their next negotiating session for the 14th or 15th of August. Now, I believe this is much more important than that. I would hope that we were meeting once a week, as I said the other night, twice a week. I think when I brought that up in public session the other night at the school committee meeting, the teachers all seemed supportive of that. But stringing this out to the beginning of the next school year is not the way to go. I believe the members of the union want to know that they have a deal, want to know that they're negotiating with the city is there at the table, and the negotiating team for the union is there, and we have to move this along. I think it's important. I have no interest, zero, zilch, none, of having kids out of school when they belong in school. And that's what I'm hoping. It never comes to that. We've already been through that with COVID. I know how that wreaks havoc with families, with the city, with emotional and health of our students. And I'm not interested in that a lick. I'm hoping that they can keep sitting down, keep talking, and come up with a proposal that's fair to the union and fair to the city. I do not believe that we can correct all the ills of the last 30 years of teacher contracts in one, but I do believe we can take a significant step in helping.
Now, first of all, have there been any talks about meeting sooner? I mean, I know you brought that up in the meeting.
I'm not on the negotiating committee. I was
Okay.
going to call Bruce a little later today and see if we've heard from them. But as you know, publicly, I stated that we should be at a minimum meeting once a week. And I don't care if it's a targeted meeting. You don't want to, tie. Let's talk about this issue tonight. Let's talk about this issue next week. Let's meetings that can try to break things down and come to a consensus on certain parts of a contract. I was in schools yesterday. I love our teaching staff, and like as I said, I wish they were the highest paid in the area. I do, but I do not believe that you can correct those issues with one contract over 3 years. I think that keeping the progress, we did this a little bit last time. We eliminated a step. We brought them up a little bit. We got to take steps to get them on par. I totally agree with that. But to try to rectify the whole thing in one contract, I think is a bit of a stretch. And again, the people that we put into these support positions and open positions, we put in to support our teaching staff to make their jobs more fulfilling, help our kids to learn quicker, and more thorough curriculum and instruction in all the rooms. Yeah, those are what we're looking for. Solid curriculum, good support for the kids, and our teachers being treated fairly. I'll go to bat for that to the end of time. But, can we correct everything in one contract? I don't see that happening, but I see us taking a tremendous step to give our teachers one of the best contracts in the state.
And they have pointed out that in comparison, the catch up and the correction, as they've mentioned, compares them primarily with the gateway cities in our region, New Bedford, Taunton, Brockton, and the like. But even the city is currently proposing, I believe, 5% the first year, 3% and 3%. Do you feel even that, which is a bigger upgrade than what we've seen in previous years in terms of yearly increases, do you think that would help and also help the recruitment and retention? A lot was brought up in terms of the open positions still here in the city.
Well, I think that's where we are on the table. Obviously, they have a counter offer. I think that the way this is going to be resolved is through talking. I think that you have to be able to give and take on both sides, which is what a contract is, to be fair. I think that proposal was up significantly from 2, and 2, and they came down to, I think, I don't want to mischaracterize their offer. It's like 10, 10, and 10. But I believe that I'm still hopeful that we can find some middle ground, look at some of the other things in the contract that we can do to help our teachers and be fair with them and get us back on a path to this correction they're looking for. Right now, we're not even talking. I mean, here we are. We go to a school committee meeting and there's a few hundred people there that are angry about a contract, and I share the exact sentiment to them. We walk through them on the way in, and again, I probably know half of them. I am totally in support of them getting a fair contract. But do they know that we're not even meeting? I don't know how that. I mean, if I was a member of the union, I'd be saying, why aren't we down? Why aren't we at the table? I want to know, is this gonna go sideways and go horribly wrong, or are we going to be able to come to a consensus? And that's what to me, the members of the union should be asking the union. And on our side, we should be asking our negotiating team, are we the problem that's holding this up? Are we the ones that aren't going to the table? Are we telling them we're not available? And that's not something I would be anyway keen on hearing. I want to hear that the only way any of these issues get resolved is through talking. If someone tells me another way, I mean, even if you end up in court or something, you're still talking. And I think that's how you can resolve it. Sit down and come across together.
All right, Mayor, as always, thank you for your time. We're actually taking next week off. I will be away, and we'll talk again in a couple of weeks. I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Thanks, Keith.
All right. And thank you for joining us here in FRC Media. Have a great week.